it's riled with boards now. A lot of us get stuck there. That's one of the things really we start with.
What do you mean by stuck?
Where we see is, I remember a child came in with the parent, and the parent started asking about, the child is grade 1, 6-year-old boy, and the parent said, "ये नीट लिख सकता है क्या?"
Oh,
I
wow.
said, "Ma'am, हम उसकी शादी की भी बात करें क्या?" and I mean, I said, this is 10 years in the making. The
Right.
world would change. Didn't 2 years of COVID taught us so much things about, change and how things can be shaken up? So really it starts with a mindset. Mindset is boards are not the destination.
Welcome to Will Talks. Today we have Vaid, who is an incredible educationist. I follow him on LinkedIn and he posts incredibly wonderful information every single day about education, schooling, alternate education. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. For the people who are listening to us today, would you like to give us some context about where are you from, where were you born, where did you grow up, and what are you doing now?
Okay. Hi, Billy. Thank you so much. This has been a long time coming and good to be here. So I had a very, very, diverse growing up time. Grew up in Kolkata. I was born there in Kolkata. I speak Bengali then. My father is a retired merchant navy. So landed up in Port Blair, Andaman Nicobar, a place you need to visit on your bucket list. I grew up with beaches. I grew up so similar to the surrounding, a lot of trees around, and a Vivekananda Kendra Vidyalaya student. Enjoyed my schooling. Went over to Chennai, did my engineering from Chennai, did a little stint in NAR, Allahabad, Motilal Nehru, a little bit of work with Skill India in IIT. I'm a Gujarati from Surat. The only mistake I did is fell in love with a Mumbai girl. Here I am with Mumbai for the last 2
You just sound like an absolute Indian. You've been all over the place.
Absolutely all over the place. Right.
That's beautiful. And from engineering to education, how was that journey like?
So I say the 3 E's. So engineering, and then I tried my entrepreneurship, and I realized education is a big calling. A bit of context. So after my engineering, I joined a firm called Unisantis. It's a German firm as a patent lawyer. So patents, trademark. I was traveling a lot to the Russians. We are primarily talking to a lot of Moscow's in so bad place, especially with the Ukraine war. Russians are good people. Just a context of what got me drawn there is I should talk a lot with these scientists. They would claim, as patent attorneys, you have to find out. For example, they would claim the entire watch. The real widget is this, the little wheel that you have, and we have to patent the wheel, not the watch. Over a period of time, you spend weeks with them, you talk to them. Evenings would be very relaxed, and over vodkas, they will start talking education.
Oh.
In India, it would be Bollywood, cricket, and that got me drawn. I would come back where my office was in Dubai, and I'll say, okay, there's so much shopping mall here, and Russia had research centers. They had Moscow Aviation Center I worked with, Treverskaya Center. And I felt, okay, there's some kind of need to do more. Perhaps education was the calling, and an engineer becomes an educator, perhaps.
This is so beautiful to every time you meet somebody who's entered into education, not by chance, but by sheer determination and sheer intention. I think the power of intention is what really stands out to me. One thing that I was quite surprised is that you're a patent lawyer, right? You've been a patent attorney, which is incredible because you hardly find patent lawyers in India that easily, here and there. But what particularly strikes me is the fact that when it comes to patents, right? The future. I don't know if you've heard of Clayton Christensen, who is a professor at the Harvard University, and he talks about the future belongs to students who are able to build IP.
Wow.
And why should children get out of school only with hobbies and interests? And why shouldn't they get out with real IPs? Because I think somewhere in schooling, people think that if I have to be an inventor, I have to really do some really big thing, right? Yes. But what they don't realize is like a simple device like this mic that I'm using here may have 10, 15, 20 or 30 different patents.
So true.
Do you want to just like talk a minute about that?
I love the way somebody who appreciates intellectual property. I really drawn towards them. It shows they're intellectual in a sense. The way a country is known by its GDP, how much gold you have, a university is known by how much patents you file. And sometimes we feel so disillusioned when we don't think about this as it's far better than all the trophies and the awards you get. How many patents are you filing? And you rightly said, patent is a minefield. You need to be very, very savvy in where you're filing these patents in. I think whatever the professor said, Professor Clayton, he's so true. IP is the future. Maybe AI. I think you are the brand ambassador of AI, Willie. I love to know so much about you. But true, you combine. You marry the IP, you marry the AIs of the world, and you have a Harvard student right in your school.
This is brilliant because if we are able to get our children to start getting into this idea of having a patent, building a patent, creating some IP. I'll tell you my example. Like about 10 years ago, when I was in the US and I came up with this system of teacher observation and coaching, in the US, every second person who met me said, go get a patent, go get a patent, get a process patent, get a process patent, things like that. And after all my years of schooling, MBA, and learning my education, everything, I still didn't understand what part of my solution was patentable. You see, and that's when you start thinking, just the way the West is taught, and just the way we are taught. I think we need to bring this into our schools, and that brings me to this idea that what's the kind of school you're running? You are running a very alternative school, very innovative school. It's a different model. And one of the things that comes to my mind is one cannot change a system being inside the system. So a lot of traditional schools talk about being inclusive, talk about being innovative, talk about doing all different things. But one is fairly limited by the framework one is already in. So at best, what you're doing is making a little bit of refinements, but you may not necessarily be absolutely changing the system. So you have to change the system from outside. I think Einstein said something like that, right? If you want to build a solution, you got to build it from a different level, not at the same level at which the problem was created in the first place.
Yes.
Any thoughts around that?
So nicely. You said, right, when we do chemistry experiments and we do iterations, it's a different combination of iteration that'll give you different results. You look at the formula, the color, the litmus test. I think education per se, Mark Twain says something very nice. I did not let my schooling interfere with my education. And I think it is as wholly as sarcastic as it is. Somewhere down the line, Willie, we think it's a very sensitive topic. You and I have great friends in school, and anytime you speak of alternate schooling, first of all, let's clarify, we are not anti-school. Or as an American, I'm not an anti-school. We love schools. That's also my bread and butter. I consult schools. I go to schools. They're fantastic. Principals are friends. And we want to be there. But what we also want to say is school belongs to the future. You don't want school to become a Nokia, or a BlackBerry or a dinosaur. We aren't changing enough. Alternate is just a buzzword. What we are asking is change a bit about add entrepreneurship, add social skills, add life skills into it. And this is what draws me to alternate schooling. The conversation was all about schools need to realign, pivot. The idea is, can we pivot a little? And that's what I've been doing all my life. I've been pivoting from Kolkata to Port Blair to Andaman.
Yeah.
I think that's...
So we're not talking about a slightly better school here. We're talking about an alternate school. We're talking about another system. We're talking about another solution. So maybe the first part of this conversation, I would like to focus it around what if somebody wants to start an alternate school? Okay. And the second part of a conversation, if you're a listener, if you're a parent, and if you have a child and if you're thinking about this idea, then maybe the second part of the conversation is going to be around, what is an alternate school? What are the different boards? Is it legal? Things like that. We would love to get answers from you because you're an absolute expert in that field. But before that, for the entrepreneurs, the educators who would want to start micro schools or online schools, lay it out to me as if I'm a first standard child. I don't understand anything. What is a micro school? What is an alternate school? What is an online school? There's this word called hybrid. People are barely figuring out what hybrid cars are. Now we have hybrid schooling. So, lay it out the way you would like to lay it out to anyone who just comes. Your neighbor knocks the door and says, "Sir, kuch batao."
Lovely. Let's batao now. Let me divide the entire concept in three parts. Part one is it starts with a change in thinking. It's a mindset change. A lot of us look at the boards, which is the only part where I concern and I talk to people and said, boards are not destinations, they are milestones.
By board, you mean?
The boards, as in the 10th board,
CBSE,
the 12th board. Yeah.
ICSE,
the board
IGCSE.
Absolutely.
These are all boards,
and
right?
state boards, yes.
There are 69 boards in India.
Wow.
Because each state also has a board.
So true. And then there are Ontario boards and Australian boards and edXLs which are coming to India. And it's riled with boards now. A lot of us get stuck there. That's one of the things really we start with.
What do you mean by stuck?
Where we see is, I remember a child came in with the parent and the parent started asking about, the child is grade 1, 6-year-old boy, And the parent said, "ये नीट लिख सकता है क्या?"
Oh,
I said, "Ma'am, हम उसकी शादी की भी बात करें क्या?" And I mean, I said, this is 10 years in the making. The
Right.
world would change. Didn't 2 years of COVID taught us so much things about change and how things can be shaken up? So really, it starts with a mindset. Mindset is boards are not the destination. In fact, I and my friends, I always joke around. If we were to look at a spouse's potential marriage partners with a board marks, I don't think I'll be married now.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are not they are not fate, they are not destinies. It is a great milestone. You're traveling to Pune, you stop at Lonavala, you love the scene. That's what a board is. You carry on.
And boards don't make textbooks, right?
They don't. That's an NCRT, that's a publishing house, that's Cambridge University Press. The world isn't the same. Board are a body assigned to write exams, check exams, and give you a certificate.
You mean
Which is
board
brilliant.
question paper banata hai?
Question paper banata hai, and see, boards are
And
fantastic.
administer
It's
examinations.
a large body. It's a very valuable body. All hats off
Yes,
to it.
absolutely.
But they do not define your child's career. How many times have you met our friends and said, "I was a great student. मैं first आता था 10th में मेरा state percentage आया." And today they are the very same people who win a crore on KBC and then they are in debt.
Hmm.
That is what I want to tell. Mindset shift. So alternate thinking will lead to alternate schooling. So first is your child's future does not depend only on a board. They're great boards. Hats off to CBSE. Brilliant what the work India is. It's like Aadhaar card to all the students with the new, APAR ID that we've got. It's great work. But it also can be done a different way. Part one. Part two is, let's say I'm thinking about alternate schooling. Look at the success ratios of students who have come alternate. I admire, Sadhguru's Isha Foundation. I spent some time in Coimbatore.
One sec. I want to ask you here.
Yes.
Alternate schooling already happening in India?
It is at large happening, only we aren't aware. There's some brilliant authors who've written. We must read a book called A Beautiful Tree by James Tooley. He speaks so much about alternate schooling, primarily in South India, in Hyderabad, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu. And I did visit, Jana Krishnamurthy's Thought of Schools. Brilliant.
The Valley
Yellow
schools.
Train, the Valley schools are there. There's Yellow Train in Coimbatore. So many schools are springing up. There is one in Jaisalmer. You can look at them. They alternate. Now, what's happening with alternate schooling is a lot of us think, alternate means you have to leave the whole city. You have to become the new Captain America. There's a movie, not the Marvel one.
Go into a cave.
Go into a cave, become a hermit, start a new farm out there, which is fair enough. There is a good friend of mine, Ratnesh, Genie Kids in Bangalore. He did something like that. Took all the kids away from Bangalore and he's doing brilliant. But how many of us are willing to leave that lifestyle? Maybe my job, my corporate career, my family.
There are obligations.
Yes. And in this perspective, micro schools play a small pivotal role. They are more like a candle in the dark circle. Fair enough. I don't want the regular board schools. I don't want the rote learning out there. I don't want a lot of mental pressure on my child. And I believe without a standardized program, my child can excel. So the micro school becomes a hope there, a small beacon of hope. So they are somewhere parallelly sandwiched between a regular traditional school and an alternate school, which is at 10, 20 acres of land.
And by regular traditional school, probably the kind of schools that you and I went to. We went to a school, spent 10 years there. We had a crazy timetable.
It is packed, very interestingly, we have these intersections and I always say the work we do in Golden Sparrow, we have 4 days of school. And people question me that 6 days we don't finish, the timetable khatam nahi hota hai. 4 days, how do you complete? I said, there is something called, time expands. Did you realize Einstein said relativity? Today, we don't have mental maps for the children. And I will not name the school. There was a child who just committed suicide. A young bride girl. What pressure could a child have where she has to go to the extreme end? And these road accidents are number one, the reason for teenage deaths in India. It's followed by suicide. In 20 years, not a great statistic.
140,000 students committed suicide in the past 10 years.
Such a dramatic, sad, and it could be your neighbor, it could be someone you know. And we know so many kids. Really, you and I are in the same circle. Circle of concern expands. So somebody's friend, a child or daughter, it's very closer home. I predict, and this was a research based on Yuval Harari, he says, in 10 years' time, road accidents will be number 2 and suicides will be number 1. What are we doing about it?
It looks like we are heading for a mental health crisis.
We are.
And it also looks like educational institutions are just falling behind. They're not able to allow children to build the high frustration tolerance that they require. They're not building the competencies for them to be able to handle their emotions and things like that. But when you speak that way, there could be a tendency for people to misunderstand that alternate schools are for kids who are not scholarly or scholastically gifted or academically brilliant. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely so far from truth that we can think of. I love the way you put it. You're a poet with words, Willie. So what we're addressing is this first part. People might say, where are you deviating from a micro school concept? We aren't deviating. What we are asking is to understand where is this need coming from. You look at a good brochure. I know your brand building and advertisement ideas. A good brochure has a lot of white spaces in between.
Yes.
Right? We saying where are your white spaces in your schools? Where are the times if Saturdays are working for teachers and students? Where am I taking a break? Is Sunday the only time? What we are saying is micro school can take back those narratives. A micro school is where you decide, all right, it's like Starbucks, a third space between home and a school, right? Where we're saying, let a child thrive. And these are for exceptionally bright kids. These are average kids, kids like you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, someone's bright here,
Yeah.
someone's not. It's okay. but no,
But we're certainly average.
no, we are doing good. So the second part of it is once we change the thinking, we say you're not challenging the system. You're not saying that this is for everybody. You're saying a micro school. Let's say I come in and I decide, hold on, my daughter and I'm not enjoying to go to school. And this is true. A school with a green jacket. I was a director there. I decided not to go. It was sad Mondays for me. My daughter was crying at the same time. There is a director here, me and my girls, not willing to go to the school. Why? It's summer and the school policy says jackets. We aren't challenging it. So we said, okay, let's create a micro school. So somebody loves music. I love SDGs. The micro school is built around what I love. There's a group that comes in, there's a cohesion happening, and kids are enjoying, they're spending time. This is the beginning of the micro school.
This sounds like somebody explaining what a kindergarten is, like a garden of kids, a garden of children. And it also sounds like maybe a school was built for efficiency, whereas a micro school is suddenly built around the child. It's built around an ideology, it's built around a philosophy, and it's probably built around creating a learning experience for the child that is memorable and formative.
Isn't that all education about?
That's what it's for.
Somehow we grow up so soon. I think kindergarten is the nursery every school needs.
Yeah.
And we just don't need to outgrow it. Let it be, let it make it more polished. Let it have more classes, more fundamentals. A micro school is that's very same idea. We hear this word child-centric so often screamed across. Everybody, even me. I'm guilty of it.
Child-centered.
Let's make it child-centric.
Yeah.
Let's take away certain subjects. So now the third part comes in, Willie, and a micro school is what gives the choice. Let's say example, I love social studies. Trust me, for the life of me, you talk about geography and I can speak hours to it. Right? We can do a podcast only on teaching geography to my kids. Thanks to Mrs. Mehra, my teacher, Mrs. Gomes, my teachers. Now, a study says one of the most hated, despised subject in a school is social studies.
Really?
Civics. Kids hate civics. My goodness, civics is so beautiful. The preamble, the voting. Only you need to change the value. Can we do the voting? Can we do manifestos? Can we do campaign? Because we become so big a conglomerate, it's too difficult.
And then you have to teach to the middle.
Yeah. So let's have textbooks and teach them through textbooks instead of doing it practically. Because you're a micro school, you can do it practically.
What when you say micro, how micro are we talking about? Like, are we saying 100 kids, 200 kids? What is a micro school?
Depends
in terms of population.
So I love. Sometimes I borrow CBSE terms. So half an acre for a city, 1 acre for a rural area. I think depending on the area.
Okay.
As long as the kids you can manage. 100 is a great number for a micro school. I usually say 120 because you also have grades 1 to 10. A micro school have grades. Just that it may have a cluster of kids between certain ages.
Wait a minute. So while there will be kids across 1st to 10th, they may not be sitting in batches of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th and 7th, right? Because if they are going to do that, then what is the difference between a micro school and a normal school? It's just a smaller school. A micro school is not a smaller school.
Not a mini version of a school.
Yeah.
It is a newer concept. So now, today, how is it relevant? How old are you and how old I am? As long as a vision, our thoughts are matching, we're on the same page. We can share a cup of coffee. Our choices are different. You have a decaf and I have a cappuccino. Yet, we can survive and thrive at the same time.
Yeah.
This is what a micro school does. A micro school says, okay, so now I borrow a leaf from this beautiful board called NIOS. It's as expansive, as holistic, as progressive as Cambridge, but with the bureaucracy of a board that is Indian board.
Fully legal.
So legal.
By the government of India.
you are authorized. If anybody denies you an admission, if you're an NIS student, the university or school can get decredited. I mean, you are talking about somebody saying denying you, Aadhaar card entry because you're on Aadhaar card, you are not allowed to enter the airport. Not possible, right?
Yeah,
That's your legal document.
this is a government certified
Yes,
thing. So
yes.
this is absolutely authentic. But I think it had a little bit of bad PR earlier when I was in school, like when I was a student, because they would say like, "Oh, you can't do normal school, go to
Yes,
NIOS."
yes.
I think that is absolutely wrong.
So true, and I think you are being very very modest with the choice of word. It has worst of the PRs, stereotyped, maligned, and to some extent even rightly so. Perhaps what happened with NIOS is only the discards, the laggards, the weak students were said NIS is your last refuge. And I'll give you a perspective which changed my thought on NIS. So that was one. Number two, there were a few malpractices that perhaps did not go well. Maybe in an X place in Sonapet in Haryana. I'm just give an example, please. Or somewhere.
These are just
Bihar or-
examples
Yeah,
indicators.
please.
These are not
Somewhere in my
necessarily.
city, let's say in Port Blair, Andaman, where I grew up
Yeah.
with, somebody said, "Oh, NIS center, I'll get you grades and all." We don't know. India is a large country. We had a neat malpractice, unearthed.
Yeah.
So NIS was, maligned for that reason.
There's a whole campaign going now about,
Absolutely.
being
So much
honest.
about
Yeah.
yes, transparency is it's so vague now. And the third part was NIS was always looked at for special kids. So if you're on the spectrum, if you're ADHD, go for NIS. So I had the same belief. I feel ashamed and embarrassed to say I believed this as an educator for 10 years. This is what I believed in. I said, no, NIS is not for me. My wife is a special educator. She would tell me, Dawood, explore NIS. And I think, your audience knows Ghar Ki Murgi, how we are treated. So I would say, no, NIS is not for me. I went to IIT Delhi, spent some time doing Skill India work, and I met a professor, Professor Rajaram. I mean, hats off to the professor. If you, I'll send this podcast to him, ex-NCRT. And I said, sir, what about NIOS? He said, have you explored? I said, sir, this is for the same. I blurted out all the stereotypes I heard about him. And he said, have you ever been to Nagpur? I said, what has Nagpur to do with NIS? He said, you can take a Duronto, you can take a Malgadi, you can take a normal reservation. Your point is to reach a destination, you choose your vehicle. NIS is vehicle. Choose it wisely. It changed my perspective. I came back. I started the idea of Golden Sparrow, pulled my daughter out from the school. And she was literally my guinea pig. I literally had pet guinea pigs, Willie. They gave birth to 6 lovely little ones also. And my daughters became my first guinea pig. I said, I'll experiment on them. And that's how the journey started. The journey started with them coming out of a regular CBSE, traditional IGCSE school. Like the Pied Piper, few kids followed me. The first batch, I had sleepless nights. I still do. Because at the end, results are important. You need to give them marks. NIS gave them such brilliant platform. They could choose psychology, business studies, entrepreneurship, painting.
Wait a minute. These are subjects that you can do in an examination by a board which is certified by the government of India.
So true. Yes. All the tick box. Just check all the boxes. And they did that. Today, today 6 years since I'm doing that. I can count where the kids are. I met some of them who are abroad. I met some of them who are all over India. They're thriving like any other child would. Perhaps a little better self-esteem, proudly saying we chose alternate work.
That's brilliant. I think from what the gentleman that you mentioned, Professor Raja.
Yes, Rajaram.
Professor Rajaram. I think what he was saying was the future of education is the parent. And let me explain what I mean.
I love this idea.
And this is also like with my conversations with my friend Jonathan. We were saying perhaps the future of education is the parent. It's not the school. It's not a university. It was looking like the future of education is YouTube. But now we're kind of feeling like maybe the future of education is the parent, where the parent becomes a central curator of experiences, learning experiences for their children. Or if you go and ask a child, wow, you're doing so well in sports. How is that, which school do you go to? You're like, oh, school didn't do anything. It's actually my parent took me to Pune, 4 times a week and got me into this, or my father trained me in football, or my mother trained me in whatever, speech and drama, and now I am. So it looks like some of the greatest successes that children achieve is because of parents' wish or parents' initiatives or the action that parents take, which means if parents start taking active curation, which means by not just resigning and say, मैंने स्कूल में डाल दिया बच्चों का भी स्कूल का प्रॉब्लम और स्कूल का प्रॉब्लम मतलब वो तो अपने हिसाब से सॉल्व करेगा आप बच्चे का मम्मी डैडी तो आप हो. So the point I'm trying to make is if parents start realizing that they are the future of education, they are the chief curator, like the way a museum curator curates a museum experience for people, that I think suddenly might open up a lot of opportunities and open up the mindset. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I love the way. God bless you, Jonathan. Whatever you said is so resonating with me as a father, as a parent. I love this tangent. Just let me add something. Really, the more parent I'm meeting of Gen Z kids, they're more willing to take risks. And I realize, okay, all this talks of baby boomers and millennials, and now I've got younger parents whose kids are younger. So of course, no, I've got these, and they're saying, no, I'm ready for risking it because I've seen the turmoil, I've seen the change, I've seen what my career did. An engineer sitting and doing an artist's work. Someone else, we are educators. I'm an engineer and I'm here, I'm enjoying my education journey. Somebody thought about it, and what you said, the parents, I'll add one more component to the parent part of it. Absolutely at the center of this change are the parents, especially the younger ones, who are more willing to take risk. Maybe, they're seeing the world of influencers, they're seeing the way the world social media is taking. Elon Musk says, I don't need your degrees, I need your skills.
Yeah.
And this parent is aspiring to be one. Now, thank God I spoke about Elon Musk. No, because remember a few years back, I mean, in Bangalore, there was a car called Riva.
Yeah,
Right? An electric car.
I remember.
And you will drive Riva and say, oh, she or he must be this green brigade
Yeah.
guy. Oh, you are making environmental
Crusader.
change. You are a crusader. Absolutely. What Elon Musk does, he comes in, he makes Tesla the aspirational car. Now you're driving a Tesla, you're not a green crusader. Oh, Tesla. Wow. You see, I want these parents to become that, where alternate school becomes a wow. It becomes an aspirational project. It is no more, oh, you are an offbeat group. You're just trying to do something different. Kal pata chalega कि बच्चों का career खराब होगा. At some point, and I see the shift happening, and online also. Again, these are not the future of schooling. Please don't get me wrong where I say schools, you and my friends will kill us who are running good schools. What I'm saying is they are also one of the, like an EV runs along in the same, road. An alternate school or an online school or a hybrid school are aspirational schools now for the new age parents.
I think what really hits me here is the fact that there's no good schools or bad schools. There is different schools.
Wow.
And we when you go to buy roses, and you go to a flower shop and we say, Bhaiya, roses dena. And he shows you 4-5 roses. Even wahan pe you see 5 different colors of roses. Right? And after that, you tell him make a bouquet, and then he picks up 7 or 8 different types of flowers, including the grasses and including the little tiny buds and all these things. And you go like, what is all? And that's when you get something so beautiful, right? Something which is just augmented. And right. So I think that we need all kinds of schools.
Absolutely.
We need, because people have different needs.
Yeah.
And it's not about good school, bad school. It's not about this or that. It's not about expensive school or cheap school. It's about आपके लिए सही क्या है. हमें हमारे बच्चों को सही स्कूल देना और उसके लिए आज क्या सही है may be different from कल क्या सही है.
Oh, so nice. And it and now the evolution time is reduced. Oh, by the way, this is being released on the Valentine week. That's why we release on roses and all. I hope Riya gets some good roses.
Yeah.
And I always give an advice. 20 years marriage.
Yes.
Tanish works better than roses.
Oh,
but diamonds are better. See, the idea that we are talking about is yes. Choose, there's a platinum rule now. The golden rule says give what you like giving. And I give 20 years, I give gifts of books to my wife. And until I realize she wants bags and Nika is where I should be going and Mintra should I be going. Our schools should adopt.
Yeah.
Our schools need to realize that it's over. Really, I studied Sanskrit and French for 10 years. Hindi, I'm a topper for Hindi. And for all that, I love the subject. The only Hindi I read today is Sauchalay. And it's sad to say because nobody told me Hari Ravansh Rai Bachchan. Nobody gave me an amazing novel into it. Premchand. Nobody told me that you could be a script writer. I think we need to put that into our kids. You want to teach them Mandarin? Go ahead. Tell them how trade tariffs will work. You want to teach them Marathi? Go show them a movie. There's a movie called Sauce. About a blind boy who is about to go blind and the father shows him Mumbai as a city. I have shown this to my kids and they've fallen in love with the language. Where is the immersion? Where is the love for the language? We are teaching them rote, which is why they hate Brazil and they hate geography and civics. Coming back to my favorite, history is all about dead people. Really, it is. And our kids are being dying out of creativity because the way we teach.
When you said that, it really touches my heart because it stirs my soul. Because I'm reminded of a podcast I had with my friend Aditya, and he said, India में ना अगर किसी के साथ कुछ समझाना है या बात करना है, रिलेशनशिप बनाना है, तो हिंदी यूज करो. अगर इम्प्रेस करना है तो इंग्लिश यूज.
Wow.
English is used to impress. Hindi is used to communicate. And what I actually mean is, I think you're able to, language is a window to the soul, culture, history. I met a friend in Delhi, and you know what he told me? He said every time he travels this country and he goes to different cities, he never says good morning.
Okay.
I'm like, what do you say then? You know, do you say like Shubha, whatever?
Right.
Do you do the Hindi version? He's like, no, man, I don't know the Hindi version. I ask them, how do you greet each other in the morning? And I'm like, what's the big deal? He's like, in the Northeast, they greet each other in a particular language,
Right. Right.
which the translation of that is, have your children eaten today?
Wow.
Because 100 years ago there was famine and there was drought and there was this and there was there were all kinds of problems, there were invasions. And if you met somebody on the road, walking, a traveler walking down, you don't want to go say good morning. You don't want to assume that he's had a greater. What if he's fleeing from a burning village? What if he's worried about his children? What if his family did not have food? And he was like, in India, every 100 kilometers, actually, every different culture from different linguistic backgrounds have a different way of saying good morning. They said good morning came from the British because the sun never sets in the British Empire.
Wow. Why I thought I'll learn Arabic. I fell in love with Malayalam instead. And so I thought if ever there was a divine language, it has to be Malayalam. And you see, then I ended up watching Manjumal Boys and Avesham. And I said, I am in love with a language because I understood the beauty of it. Right? This is what we're missing out. See, all the language brigade, I say, I love the way. I speak Bengali, Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil. And this really, and of course, Hindi and English. And that makes me so much a part of people's culture. I started with Shore Ingeva and now I can do Tamil and Taimuli. No, I've reached a stage where I can have a good communication. Can we make our kids not write the exams per se, then love the language? This is what NIS gives us. The flexibility it gives us. So you choose a language. There's 17 languages to choose from, by the way.
17.
Malayalam, Hindi, Tamil, Odia. Choose. And it says, okay, you want to do one language, do one language.
I can certainly see grandparents being able to now help children learn and crack exams.
So beautifully you added. I spoke to my kids the other day. I said, this generation is the last generation that has seen Indian independence. The day our grandparents' generation are no more, you have nobody here, living legend, who have seen the independence, the flag being unfurled. Talk to them. We will never get our grandparents back. The people in the 80s and 90s, they're the last remaining people who have seen India fighting for independence, the British leaving India. We'll never see them ever again. When are we making connect with them? Isn't this social studies? Isn't this Hindi? Isn't this the love of the language? And what NIS allows me, it gives me the legitimacy to allow this to happen. So I can skip a Marathi exam, not because I don't love the language. I love the language immensely. But my child is now loving the language more because he's not studying for the exam, he's studying for life. And isn't that what I want?
Yeah, I think that's amazing. If I want to start a micro school or an online school, how can I do that? What should I do? What are the 3, 4, 5 things? Is there a list? Is there a numbered list?
To each their own. The idea is a basic premise can be set up. Number one, the intention comes with saying, okay, I'm doing alternate school. It will not be going to high density school. So be happy with 20, 30, 50 students. That's number one. You need a nice area. A cafe will do. But primarily, you need a space. I keep calling them islands. So it could be a smaller place, a rental place, something where you have some zones there. A reading zone, a class 5 zone, a class 3 zone. So you mentally prepare a zone. That's number two. Number three, you go for an NIS, which comes much later, an OB status. Open Basic Education gives your child the permission to be a homeschooler. So all alternate schoolers primarily will be a homeschooler.
And that's legal.
That's legal, absolutely.
Because of the RT saying every kid has to be in school.
And this is exactly, you use the same RT and say a child has a right to study the way they want. And that's an allowed. So NIS gives you examination at 3, 5 and 8, which gives you a certificate where you can validate it to any school and can go to a regular school also. So that's my 3 basic idea. Finally, yes, you need a group of educators. I always say, if I am the child's father and the maths teacher and the science teacher, a child is having very limited idea. This is where you have a group of 3 or 4 people. There is a small setup. You have each their responsibility. Your micro school begins. It's as simple as opening up a pre-primary. You're just pushing yourself at a higher grade. You're allowing yourself the diversity of the subjects. Start focusing on maths and science. I always insist on saying the fundamentals are very valuable, but the freedom is there. You can put a Khan Academy video. You can take up an unmatched program. You can do multiple things. You can do World Statistics Day and match, or play a board game called Battleship, which is X and Y axis. Maths comes in. Of course, I'm always there to help guide. There are videos online. There are multiple people online who are now sharing the expertise. You can go visit one of the alternate schoolers. It's a great work.
As an alternate school, your children will never be without a board. They won't be boardless, right? They will have a certificate. They will be able to get into college. Will they be able to get into NEET or JEE or engineering or anything like that?
So hats off to NIS. It fought with the Supreme Court where there was a stay on the homeschoolers. Now every single child can write NEET. So an NIS or homeschooler, an alternate schooler can write NEET. I heard if somebody cracked an IIT, an NIS student or a homeschooler, alternate schooler, so they can very well attempt all of these courses.
So if my children attend, let's say, an online school or a micro school and do a NIOS exam, will they also be able to go abroad?
Oh, yes. I've got two students who have finished the NIOS 10th and they're studying in GEMS Marina, one of the top IGCSE school in the Bay in Dubai. And they're doing very well. They finished their 12th. Now one of them has gone to Australia. So, in fact, I feel going abroad is easier option with the alternate bodies because they accept it. Germany accepts it. UK accepts it. In India, we still have the stereotype. I hope people hear the podcast and say, okay, I'm willing. You see, you must respect the kids double because number one, they're working equally hard and they've chosen to be the kind of
Different.
yes, different as in they are the
it's
flag bearers.
Yeah, it dare to be different.
So
Right?
why do we thank a Bhagat Singh? Because he chose to be the flag bearer and
Challenge
others
the
followed
status
him.
quo.
Malcolm X, he chose to be someone else. Martin Luther. I think these kids, the alternate schoolers, are those flag bearers.
And I think as parents, we should be the one who are supporting them.
Oh,
We should be the
absolutely.
one saying, "Karo."
And-
Who?
And the second part really are the administrators. If they put a little, see, I spoke about Professor Rajaram, and when I respect him, I also think about Father Adolf. He's in Don Bosco. I go to him. So these are my mentors. When I'm down, I'll go, Father, what happens? So Father Adolf Fultado, he said he lived his life for NIS. He chose this as an alternate school, and these are people, administrators. He fought, and today there's a beautiful, thriving wing of NIS in Don Bosco Seawoods. If every school leader decides, all right, I met some wonderful school heads and I keep talking about them, they allow not for weak students, not for special kids. We should be inclusive, but for kids who want to do a little diverse, okay, there's an NIS wing, there's an EdExcel wing. Choose your subjects. How wonderful it is.
Absolutely. I think the last week I was driving down the highway and all I could see I don't know if you noticed, but 90% of all the hoardings in Mumbai are real estate hoardings.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they're not schools; they're real
Okay.
estate hoardings, and all of them
Which
are now
is exactly the school.
which all these hoardings are talking about clubhouse
Okay.
and play area
There you go.
and swimming pool. And I don't know, some of them have even said Jain temple or banquet hall, I'm like, when there are buildings with 200 to 800 families, I see a future where
Beautiful.
many of these complexes may have their own micro school or alternate school
Said it.
inside that complex because they have all the other infrastructural benefits that a large school may provide, but what they don't have is the education. Inside that society,
Yes.
I have seen so many times that in the morning, there are children, principal, teachers, everyone going to another building. Imagine
So true.
if the school comes to the complex,
Yes.
how things are going to change. So I really think that
I love this thought, and I think I
Yes, I do.
validate it because what you just said, everything suits it. A micro school is something which borrows resources. So we are actually an SDG school. We are a sustainable school, which says, okay, I don't need to have a playground per se. Really, I have a question here. With schools with lovely playgrounds, we ask kids to go at 11 o'clock to play dog and the bone. I think, can we not have an evening sports where they actually intently do sports? Or an online school is great for sports people where you give your prime time to something you enjoy, 6 to 10, and come back and do your online schooling. The idea is what you just said. Every complex can have a micro school. 50 kids of there. That's what peer learning is all about. You have a playground there. You have a basketball or a swimming pool. And you also have certain areas which could be recreation. You could be library. And that's what a micro school comes in.
that's amazing. You have an online school, right?
I have an
You have an online school and it's called Golden Sparrow. And
Hub,
it's
yes.
it's online, but
Right.
you operate out of Nerul.
Yes. Yes.
So people should get in touch with you and understand it. You have how many kids if you're open to sharing?
Yes, absolutely. So the online school started pre-COVID, which is something very interesting. It was not a afterthought of the COVID. It started because I realized there's some wonderful educators across who I'm not getting access to for my own children. So I kind of gathered them together. We made a small group. First, we had three classes the very same way, and it gave you the liberty to choose the best educators. The same way I chose to go online, some teacher decided, okay, enough of me commuting back and forth. I'll work from home and I'll do teaching, which is what I could. Golden Sparrow Hub has around 200 kids now. Very honest, organic growth, enjoying. Yes, today morning I made a list, compile a list of 9 online schools. And the beauty of it, Willie, okay, some people say, online school, why do you need 9? One is enough. I said, that's where you get it wrong. Really, I am a compulsive shopper, online shopper, right? So I love the shopping part. I'm growing 3 girls. What do you expect me to do? So I realized that, okay, when you're shopping online, let's say I want a pair of jeans or a coach set for my wife or she wants to choose, there's Amazon or Flipkart and I won't go there. I'll go to Myntra or Nika if my budget's very high. If I am choosing for myself, I'll go to Misho. I just give you 5 options. There is other option. The Tatas are there. AGO is there. I just told you about 7 online shopping options. Why? For the same garment? And you don't want options for online school? Every school is different. The flavors are different. Some are very inclusive, only for special needs. I know Tanuja ma'am and Jaspreet ma'am, they're doing some brilliant work with online school. Amrita Masonic and there's one in Andheri. Good work, but they're specialized with special kids. I realize I can't do that same work. The patience, the peer group changes. There is beautiful work that 21K
Also the
does,
training.
Birla does. Yeah, oh, the training. The teachers are tuned for an IGCSE school, for a edXL school, for an NI school. So with Golden Sparrow, we realize, okay, that's what we want to be very, very, how do you say, parent friendly. So we want to be approachable. So they have my number or my colleagues or my wife's number. We say, no, that's the kind. We want to make a community of schools where you can pull me and say, no, no, this was not nice. Thank you so much. Can we improve it? Every school brings that flavor. So Golden Sparrow is that.
I think from what you're saying, the words "every child needs a village."
Oh,
A
yeah.
child is raised by a village. A child needs a village to raise. I think that really comes alive because it looks like a community of lifelong learners. A community. It's a very intimate community,
Yes.
and it's not necessarily one that is driven by the rules, regulations, and tight frameworks. It's you know it's responsive to the needs of those learners. And when I say those learners, means the learners who show up to the school every day. So I think that is one of the most powerful things. Few things that I was reading a little bit about microschools before I had this conversation with you. 90,000 microschools in the US.
Wow.
90,000 microschools in the US. Average number of kids, the median number of kids in a microschool is about 25 in the US. And there's one category of children particularly had tremendous benefit from microschools. It is the category of children who had a slight physical impediment, not cerebral, not brain. We're not talking about any
A medical
dyslexia or anything like that.
condition.
Yeah, nothing intellectual. We're talking about like maybe there was a little problem walking or a limp or something like that, where the schools were not able to handle that. And most kids with a physical issue, with a small physical challenge, are the research is saying that they're higher at risk for abuse
Okay.
because they may need assistance to go to the bathroom. They may need assistance to climb up and down.
Yes.
And the problem of ragging, the problem of bullying in school, name calling,
Yes.
sometimes can completely destroy. I mean, kids can be really cruel.
Absolutely. And they can also be mean. And that's
Yeah,
what makes them
right.
kids.
They're
That's
just
what makes
kids,
them who
right?
they are.
They don't understand the
And don't you
impact
think
it
really
has.
it's a reflection of the society they live in.
It does.
Go to online trolling and you realize kids are doing nothing but eating
Yeah.
us.
So I think that the fact that micros and look at India, right? I mean, if you live in Mumbai and you live in, let's say, within a 30-40 kilometer radius, you think that the whole of India is like this. It's not, right? You go 100 kilometers away, and the biggest problem is like English teacher nahi mil raha hai, geography teacher nahi mil raha hai.
Yes.
So there are places all over this country where you don't have access to teaching capital. You don't have you may have land, you may have building, but you don't have teachers. What are you going to do? Right? So I think there is, and then now there are so many families who are traveling, gig workers. I mean, the fact that you live in Mumbai and pay enormous amount of rent is only because you want to go to work. What if your company says we're okay with you working online? I mean, you may want to go to Goa or Kerala or, somewhere in Himachal and, in Chel or something and pay 1/10 the rent.
Wow.
But then your kid doesn't have access to schooling. So if you really look at it that way, uh, when the NEP talks about giving access to quality education across the country, this is a massive platform
So
that
true.
allows parents choice, voice,
I love. You just
and
increased the
access.
online school enrollment by
Oh
10%.
yes.
People should credit you for that. I want to add some beautiful. Whatever you said makes so much of sense. And I want to add one thing about a child. There's a girl called Aisha in Pune. Her lungs were damaged in COVID. This is one of the most brilliant child I have in my school, an online schooler, and she writes her exams from ICU. And I have not seen anyone perform so well. This child has an opportunity. That's what online school is. It's not. And the second point is, the moment I say online schools virtues does not make me say that the regular schools are bad.
Yeah.
The moment I say Nehru is wonderful doesn't make Vasai bad. They are brilliant places to grow.
Like when I say you look very handsome, I'm not
Doesn't
saying
look
anything
make you
about me.
ugly. Yeah, all right. But I'll take the compliment. Fair enough. Make sure it's recorded and the clip is played out over and over. That's exactly what you mentioned. Online school is an option that we give them. I have students who want to play IPL and they go to practice. They come back and they have students. Coming back at 10 o'clock, take a shower, have breakfast, and then join the online school. There are families who want to migrate a lot and they're going across and online school. Again, the transparency that an online school gives, you as a parent can sit back and see what the teacher is teaching them. There is no closet teaching. There is no bad pronunciation or rigor. There is no rote learning. You know what you're getting, what you're paying for is right there on your screens.
I love what you're saying. You, you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing hope is not a strategy. Getting up in the morning and putting the perfect middle partition on your son or daughter's hair and then sending them into in a bus and putting them in the bus on time and packing a nice warm lunch or tiffin for them and you doing everything for them and then hoping that the school is doing everything else.
School
uh,
is not a drill. That is what I keep saying.
so hope is not a strategy. Hope should not be a strategy, which also kind of means that in this kind of environment I think that um, you're able to see the teacher, you're able to see the learning, you're able to see your child, um, and that, I think, gives you the opportunity to correct, to refine, to adjust, not necessarily find fault with, but also makes you a willing participant in what can happen to your children, because end of the day, you are your children's guaranteed admirer. You're the personal admirer of your children. Who are the best kind of people who should start micro schools?
People with a lot of zeal, entrepreneurial spirit, and educators. A lot of people who want to start, say, preschools, they said, come on, grow up a little. And there are enough clutter of preschools. So now why don't you explore a field which is required today, which is micro schooling? Because someone has to be brave enough. I always say a school is not looked at an Excel sheet. A lesson plan is what makes a school school. I want people to be smart enough to balance the expenditures. So those are the kind of people. You have passion, you have a basic education idea, and you have an entrepreneurial perspective. Micro schools are for you. And you start small. Start with a batch of 10. Again, I give you a three perspectives. So NIS have OB, A, B, C. Start with A, B, C. A bunch them in A, bunch them in B, bunch them in C. Make them to learn peer together. Someone TPS.
Think pressure.
Yeah, they teach each other. Photosynthesis isn't such a complex thing. It's happening since the earth was made. It's not so complex that a class 5 cannot teach a class 4. Do it together. LCMs can be solved together in a group together. That's how micro school starts. And I think you have a basic saving. You're good enough to start a micro school.
That's so beautiful, and I don't think parents have crazy expectations in terms of infrastructure from a micro school.
Yes.
The only expectation they have is "Mera bachche ka dhyan do," and give them the attention that they need, and I want to see them growing. I think no matter how big your school is or how fancy it is, if a parent doesn't feel that their child is growing, end of the road,
Absolutely.
right?
Hygiene, safety, right? So I feel it's hygienic enough. I feel very safe and secure and welcoming. That's all the three aspects you need. And I think anyone can do that.
And these parents who say that, "Arey, this online school, micro school, social skill nahi badta," uh, what is your rebuttal to that? Because that is something that I always hear.
Yes. Yeah.
and And in my head, I'm like, I know people in school who gone to school and they have like such low social skills. So
Yeah.
you just have more experience answering that question.
No, I think this is fair enough. And it's a fair enough question. Susan Cain wrote a book called Quiet. It's about all introverts. This was much before the pandemic. So there were people who were introverts even before an online school came. I said, where did they come from? They must have gone to some schools, Willie. The point is we are raising questions because something has just come up. We were introverts and extroverts ever since the dawn of human Adam and Eve walked.
Yeah.
So it's not
And there's
about
nothing wrong with it.
schooling does not make you an extrovert introvert. It's who you are, your personality.
Yeah.
And yes, see, a lot of time we have to pull up the negative. There is bullying, there is mental pressure. So that's a school. So you can also choose something else which is not there. There is peer learning. We learn so differently. We learn so differently than, and our kids will learn even far more different than us. And today there is a gaming circle out there and they have best friends on gaming. I'm a non-gamer, Willie. All right. And, you are the educator's Nikhil Kamath is what I think. You have 50 podcasts. I promise you next year I meet, I have heard all of them. The reason is I heard Nikhil Kamath on gaming. And I would be, there are kids who only watch a commentary on somebody is doing a Fortnite or some, Clash of Clans. And I would say how idiotic it is to watch somebody. And there was a gamer who said, people watch cricket all day long. How idiotic it is. You're not playing. I'm not getting healthy. I'm still fat. And I realized, oh, yes, the joke is on me.
Yeah.
So, all of you who are thinking social skills do not get developed, please chill. You are responsible for your social skills. Take your kid out for a Comic Con. Take them for Kala Ghoda. Take them to libraries. Take them to meet more kids and they will get social skills.
Yeah, and I think Indian families are so huge. Take them to a wedding.
Oh, absolutely. You won't be invited to a lot of weddings that come on Instagram, but you have your family weddings there. So, yes, yeah.
That's so true. What do you think about people who already run big schools? Should they, like people who are running traditional schools, right? Big structures. Should they be thinking of micro schools? Should they be thinking of online schools as well? Because an entrepreneur's responsibility to serve all stakeholders, not just fee-paying stakeholders.
So true.
That is an answer that I'd spoken to the bishop in Vasai once, and he was saying you got to think about all your stakeholders, not just the people who pay fees.
Absolutely.
Because
So good.
as an entrepreneur, if you're running a school, we're actually social entrepreneurs, right? Our job is to augment the government's initiatives in order to make sure that we make society a better place to live.
Right.
So, what do you think? What should their mentality be?
They are the key. Remember I said two people, parents and administrators. The administrators are the school heads, school owners, school leaders. They owe a responsibility because see, we are seeing change. Once a tsunami of education comes in, you'll be swept aside. Hybrid is the new norm. Good habits often die very early. Exercising is a good habit. I'm excited to do something. In 5 days, 10 days, I'm done. New Year, I took a subscription of a gym. We learned how to learn online in COVID. It was a good habit. How many of us are continuing to do the Googles and the Zooms and the Meets? We aren't. And that's a sad part of it. Schools must dedicate a day where we are only going online. In fact, I had a lot of enrollment in Delhi where there was a smog going on. The Golden Sparrow. I'm not benefiting from somebody's illness, but I'm realizing there's an alternate. People want that also. So that's part one. Part two, Sugata Mitra, Professor Sugata Mitra,
Hole in the wall project.
yeah, hole in the wall. He coined a term. I met him. We are privileged in Mumbai. He keeps coming.
Grandma teachers.
Grandma teachers, where you sit back and you motivate. And he said souls, self-organized learning environment. I realize schools are an ecosystem. Why can't you create a mini model inside your school? A hybrid school. Schools within a school. Because you are an ecosystem. And an ecosystem, it's like an island. There is a smaller island where there's entrepreneurship. And you want to go for entrepreneurship? Allow that. It needs effort, which is what, if we are lazy, we won't put effort. If 20% of educators decide that, we'll have micro schools within a schooling system.
I love it. Like when there are shops inside a shop, when there are, the shop and shop is a concept. Like inside a mall, there will be smaller shops.
Yes, yes.
Inside a shop, there could be a smaller counter.
Lovely.
If a restaurant can have an AC section and non-AC section, a veg section and a non-veg section, right? Why should schools just be all alike, right?
Schools are a large real estate.
Yeah.
You owe it to the people who want something alternate.
And it's a community resource. It's an absolute community resource. So
And other than that, if there will be micro schools springing up. I'm sure someone's hearing and said, okay, hold on. I love Carnatic music, and I think there is a blend of 20 kids who wish to do that as a prime lesson, and maths and science can follow up. That's a micro school for you.
How can you help somebody who wants to start a micro school or an online school?
Tell them to just reach out, probably all the NIS guidelines, all the curriculum guidelines, teachers training. I think there's always, a way to start something small and scale it up. Micro school does not mean the responsibilities are small. It is momentous, it is huge, but you start small.
And there's nothing wrong, or as a parent, you're not providing any less by sending your kid to a kind of school that you didn't go to.
Yes.
If parents are saying, मुझे वो मेरे बच्चे को देना है जो मुझे भी नहीं मिला, then maybe you want to evaluate.
And we can't predict what's 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
We decide today what would happen. And those predictive models tell us that this conventional thing is great, but ultimately, how do you stand out? Maybe an entrepreneur among the micro school, can a kid in grade 10 understand an Excel sheet? Perhaps not. They only make PowerPoints. You are the messiah of the AI for teachers. Really,
Oh my God.
does a child understand AI today? We are worried about GPT. I think it's one of the most beautiful tool if you understand the tool.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a time when comic books were banned, and I think a child reading a manga today should be celebrated. He's reading something. The same way Netflix came and disrupted the industry. The idea of a micro alternate online school will disrupt the way education is happening.
I completely agree. As a father of 3 children, who I think went through, who are currently in an alternate school, online school,
Yes.
how do you feel? How happy do you feel? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Contented?
Speak to
Yes.
fathers. Speak to fathers who are probably listening. Speak to mothers who are probably listening.
No, I think there's so emotional part of me. I live in a sea of estrogen, with all my girls around, my wife, my mom, my father's in merchant navy, so I'm the only male, and I realize there's so much to talk to, right? The best gift we can give to our kids is our presence and loving their mother. That's it, their mother. Yeah, please, quote me right in the sense. All I feel is my girl should see me kissing my wife, holding hands. My presence home is more valuable than that. That's my primary lesson. I mean, irrespective wherever you are, come home, spend time. I could spend so much time because the pressures were less. We enjoyed our projects because they were doing it. They chose to do it. My eldest now is going to college after 8 years of online homeschooling. She's a bright, bubbly child. You see, she's no different than any other child, any other student in a college. And I think that's a path she's chosen. She could learn German, Willie, and I could understand the joy of teaching something different to her. So that's the kid. As a father, I think read to them, travel with them. Schooling, don't expect schooling to change your child unless you are willing to change them. And my appeal to them, I mean, reading a newspaper and spending time with your child is not their time, it's your time. Watching an IPL is not their time. I realized when my daughter came in and said, Abba, I want to read David Warner's biography. And then I realized it was too much of cricket and she wanted to be with me. She didn't like this fellow, Warner. We went to an IPL match together, Willie. I realized I want to bond with my girls. And it's not about the girls. Some people say I'm biased towards girls. It's all about boys and girls. Just spend time.
That's incredible. I can see my team members saying battery is going down, battery is going down. You're somebody that I can talk to for the next 3 hours and we'd constantly be uncovering things. But as a listener, if you were listening to the Will Talks podcast today with Mr. Dawood Vaid, I think, and if you getting the feeling that you want to talk to him more, just pick up the phone, give him a call. What is your platform of choice? Where can people reach you?
I think I love LinkedIn. I was hacked and I thought I lost my identity. So you can ping me on my mobile phone. It's on LinkedIn itself. Email me and there's so many things available. Today, I think we are accessible. I'm in so many WhatsApp groups, Willie. Where there's a Will, there's Willie, right? Reach out to him for everything other than, micro schooling. I leave something, but I think you're doing some amazing work, Willie.
Thank
You're
you.
getting educators together. And I must appreciate not because you called me and gave me this lovely coffee and the ambience here, but the idea that you're willing to make educators talk. I see a lot of entrepreneurs having podcasts. And I'm sorry, I'm taking your battery, dying battery. I see a lot of musicians coming on a podcast. I think this is one platform. Trust me, do nothing. No micro schooling, traditional schooling. Get those 50 podcasts, listen to them. They'll become an educator.
I think the educator is a new kind of superhero.
Absolutely, without the cape.
Without the cape. And you're certainly one of those superheroes. Thank you for doing what you do. I think there's a very special place, in God's heaven for teachers who get out there and really try and make the lives of children really different and much better. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for
My
trekking all the way and so selflessly sharing and also offering to be the person who could guide anyone who wants to take this step.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. It was worth every inch of travel. Thank you.
Awesome.